Who got that breakdown? Who got that actual video breakdown? Swift Sports, that's who. Knowledge Untamed, TDU, game time. Welcome to the Swift Sports Show, turn it up. Super Bowl Shuffle, don't forget to like and sub. Them other channels drinking, man, they need to sober up. This here is bear down, yeah, we going for the dub. You are now watching Swift Sports.
What's up, guys? Swift here. I have a special guest. My man, Adam Mason, is finally coming on and joining the show. First off, Adam, go ahead and introduce everybody. Tell them where they can find you at on YouTube, on Twitter, anywhere. Let them know, and welcome to the show, my man. It's an honor.
Hey, thanks, Swifty. Hey, you say finally, but that's funny because it's not really finally. My channel's not that old, but it's Adam Loves Sports. It's kind of a funny name. I'm not changing it. The basis of it came from, I've got some little girls, and as I started this thing out, I asked my daughter what I should name it. She said, all I know is my dad loves sports. So I couldn't put Dad Loves Sports, so I put Adam Loves Sports. But it's just Adam Loves Sports. If you search that or Adam Mason, you can find me. I'm a fairly new channel, but diehard Bears enthusiast, and I use a stats approach, an analytical approach to my analysis of the Bears, and just appreciate you having me on, man.
Hey, I couldn't be happier. I got to share a little bit of a story here, and I know you kind of want to talk about this too, because why I said finally is because Adam was he's one of my first subscribers, guys. Adam's been watching my channel since close to the beginning, right? I don't know exactly, but my memory's not.
Yeah, I remember when there weren't as many subscribers, for sure.
He's been there a long time, and his comments were always so dead on, agreeing with, not 100% agreeing with me, but at least 99% of the time, the guy would have deep analytical thoughts. And one of the people in the comments, there's more of you out there, but they will post, comments like this. And I'm like, okay, when I'm sitting there reading the comments, I'm like, wait, I got to step back and look at this one because it's deep. It's not just like, hey, good job, Swifty. But I'd reached out, I'd told him, like, hey, man, come on, like, do a show with me or something. And he was always like, nah, I can't. I'm just a dad, and I ain't got time for that. I'm a nerdy analytical guy. And the next thing I know, months later, I had tried to get him on, and then people are randomly on Twitter, Swift, you got to check out this Adam Mason guy. Swift, check out this Adam Mason guy's video. And I'm like, Adam, I'm like, I go to his channel, he's already over 1,000 subscribers, I think, by the time he told me. It might not have been 1,000, but it was getting close. And I was like, when did he start making videos? Like, what? It's an honor, man.
Quick, yeah. Yeah, I never wanted to start a channel. That was never my desire, but you know how it kind of happens. But I remember last year, when about a year from now, like right after free agency started, everyone was pounding the table and asking for us to get Yannick Ngakoue. And I was in your chat room, like it was a vendetta of mine. I was the guy that was against everyone, and I was like, Yannick Ngakoue is not a defensive end for us. He's not a starting defensive end. He's a support guy. He's like DeMarcus Walker to me. And I actually was comparing the two of them and showing how their stats per snap improve. And I had all this analytical stuff. And I remember you asked me to come on, and I was like, no, that's not my thing. I'm not a content creator. I'm just a dude who does these spreadsheets at his house and breaks down these stats per snap. And I break down these percentages, and I'm just a nerd. But as we've had these 2 first-round picks 2 years in a row, and people are bashing on Justin Fields, I just feel the need to break down stats and show people the reality. And that's kind of where it started. And it just kind of exploded, and it's become more of a thing for me. And here we are. So I love it, though. I enjoy this more than my 9-to-5 job. And it would be great if one day this was my 9-to-5 job, but that's the pipe.
I love to hear it, man. It's honestly, your takes are always great. Every video I've watched of yours, I've hit the like button and enjoyed. Great to hear another guy who has a deep analytical perspective and uses logic when they think about things. There's too many people in not only the national media, but even the people, the do-it-yourself media, people call it DIY, whatever they call us, content creators, that do the same thing. They just look for impressions. They're trying to get clicks out of people. They're regurgitating and repeating what other people say and not taking time to think about things analytically and with logic. And I love how you approach that and how you think about the game. So it's great to talk to you finally, and we're gonna get into it. You're ready, right?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do this. This is fun.
All right.
This is
We're,
what I love, is talking Bears stuff with other Bears enthusiasts and just people who have been mentioning I need to get on with Swift. Guys, Swift is part of the reason I did this. I watched Swift and I agree with 99% of his stuff. And I feel like there weren't enough Swifts, and that's why I was putting content out there. So big props to you, Swift. You are a huge inspiration to why I started doing it. So
hey man, don't get me emotional right now before we start talking Bears, but I love it, man. I couldn't appreciate something like that. Means the world to me. And I'm just a guy like you that sits at home and likes to. I've always studied the draft and love Bears football. All I want is the Bears to win a Super Bowl. So we'll kick off.
yeah.
We'll get right into the biggest thing that, the biggest talk. What's everybody talking about? It's the quarterback situation is what we're going to start with. So I've just finished my scouting report on Caleb Williams. I'm pretty sure you saw that. I think you were there. I'm high on Caleb Williams. I like him a lot, but I saw a lot of negatives as well. And to me, I just think for the Chicago Bears to be the best team this year and going forward, the best thing to do would be to look for a trade down and add more talent around Justin Fields. And I'm pretty sure you're on that same page there. And I think you're pretty sure we're sticking with Justin Fields. So wherever you want to go with this, why you think we're keeping Justin Fields, or your thoughts on the quarterback situation, I'll let you take it off.
First of all, I think your assessment of Caleb Williams was completely fair. And I don't think so. What I see too much of right now is the polarity, which we've talked about, the civil war between fans. It's not, is Justin Fields a bust or is Caleb Williams a bust? It's not one has to be great or the other has to be bad. That's not reality. Caleb Williams could be great in this league. He really probably will be, as long as he gets the right situation. The reality to me, a lot of fans don't take the time to look at the situation the Bears were in 2021 when Justin Fields came in, and just how bad that was with the Bears. And this team really could have been the Cleveland Browns or other historically bad programs if we didn't have Justin Fields. He's kind of given us a basis to be able to build from and build around him. And it sucks for him because now he doesn't have that elite quarterback status where he was great right off the bat and he's amazing, and he didn't get to sit behind someone like Pat Mahomes did. He doesn't get to, have the perfect situation for him, but he came into sorry, I'm a Bears fan. I'm not calling the Bears garbage, but a garbage situation. And it was horrible. His line has been among the worst every single year. The pressures they allow to come through are among the worst every single year. He was the second most pressured quarterback behind Geno Smith this year. Last year, he was the number one pressured quarterback. That does fall on the line. It's not just on him, because a hurry isn't just him needing to get the ball off. A hurry is a normal amount of time for a quarterback to set his feet, which is about 2 seconds. So if he's getting pressures before 2 seconds, of course he's going to scramble. Of course he's going to have to do what he did last year in 2022 and make crazy, amazing plays. And obviously they want to limit that, so he did it less this last year. He took more throwaways. His throwaway percentage was way up. Sorry, I'm getting into the nerdy analytical stuff. But the guy has not he has not had a fair shot. And on top of that, people look at Darnell Mooney like a number one receiver. Well, that's because out of necessity, the Bears had to force him to be one. Is he bad? No, but he's not DJ Moore. And it showed what happened this year when we finally got a number one receiver, that DJ Moore had a career year with career stats. And he and Justin Fields, if Justin had, nobody has 3 number one receivers, but if he had 3 DJ Moores, this team would not even be talking about a quarterback.
Whew. Yeah, no, that's 100% true. I love how you pointed out the pressure stat, because that's something that a lot of people be like, well, he gets all those pressures because he holds the ball so long. And it's like, no, you don't understand what a pressure is at that. He can take sacks from holding the ball so long, but he gets pressure on him within 2 or 2.5 seconds. He has someone in his face and has to bail out. And that his pressure percentage is on pace in his career right now to be higher than Andrew Luck's, who got beat so bad he was out of the NFL. So
Did he retire?
It's not an excuse. It's an actual fact of something that has happened with him in his short career in Chicago that people don't take into account when all they really care about is wins and losses. It's such a microwave society, this instant gratification. You got to win now or get him out of town. And you need continuity. And if you look at the people who have success, I have people commenting all the time, well, look at Jordan Love in his first year. It's not Jordan Love's first year. It's his 4th year, and he's been in the same system for 4 years with a great play caller. He got to set and learn for 3 years before he took the field. It's just different. And we need to, in my opinion, we need to have a better situation in Chicago to help our quarterbacks grow, no matter who that quarterback is. And that starts with continuing to trade down, add more draft picks, and just make the team better overall. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm so excited for the new coaching staff that we brought in, because so many people say that, and then they even use Tyson Bagent as a scapegoat for Justin Fields. And it's the same thing with Tyson Bagent that they're doing with Caleb Williams. It's got to be either or. Tyson Bagent was an undrafted free agent for a reason. He also is a student of the game and studies his butt off, and you can tell that shows up on the field. When he came in, he played well. Did he play starter quality? Not in my opinion, but he could sit behind Justin Fields and become a very quality backup in this league. But look at the way that Luke Getsy called the game differently when Justin Fields was in and when Tyson Bagent was in. He made a clear change in the way that he approached the game. And that's not continuity. That's not consistency. It didn't help Justin Fields at all. It didn't help Tyson Bagent at all. It didn't help the wide receivers. And so the whole situation with the Bears and their play calling, I try to point that out to other fans that talk about the whole Jordan Love thing. And I try not to get too deep into the statistical stuff, but Jordan Love had a lower adjusted completion percentage than Justin Fields. He also had a higher bad pass percentage. I mean, these stats are things that people can look up if you go to different places. PFF is the biggest place where I get stuff. They're not the end all be all. But Jordan Love statistically was worse at his metrics than Justin Fields was. He also had a top 10 offensive line, and he also had receivers that didn't drop the ball and receivers that had more separation than Justin Fields. So he's in a much better situation. And then you look at, they do metrics on play callers as well. Luke Getsy was on the bottom 5 of the league. His play calling did not match up our schemes and where we were.
And Matt LaFleur is top of the league always.
Yes. Nailed it. Matt LaFleur is consistently the Packers, as much as I don't like the Packers because we're Bears fans, they've got it figured out as far as the system goes. So you have to give him credit. And Jordan Love is doing enough to be a good quarterback in that system. But would I pick Jordan Love over Justin Fields? No, not even close. I really wouldn't. And a lot of people are negative on that, but I really believe Justin Fields has what it takes to be an NFL top tier quarterback.
I agree. I think if you put Justin Fields in that same situation where he sat behind Aaron Rodgers for 3 years and then gets to start this year with Matt LaFleur as his play caller, I think he comes out and tears up the league. I honestly think he could have been an MVP candidate in that scenario. Whereas Jordan Love, if you put him where he comes in and starts game 2 of his career against that Cleveland Browns defense that beat the hell out of Justin Fields, I don't know what happens with Jordan Love after that, but I would bet any amount of money I had that he's not where he is right now if the situations were flipped. I think there's just a lot that goes into the development of a quarterback, the play caller, the situation he's in, the continuity, and everything that goes into it that people just don't look at. And you killed it with that point, man. I couldn't agree more.
Well, and that doesn't take the excuses away from Justin Fields either, because he has had 3 years to progress and improve. And that's one of the biggest things. I'll send this part to you. It's a graph that I keep showing on my channel over and over and over again. He's improved on every important metric the Bears have asked him to improve on, from his taking less sacks to his adjusted completion percentage to throwing the ball away. If you take those things, if you take the important things that the Bears have asked him to do, to reduce the number of sacks he's taken, to throw the ball away more, which those two coincide. If you're just throwing the ball away, that doesn't mean anything unless you're taking less sacks. His adjusted completion percentage, all those things are improving for him. He's the only thing that's not a huge difference to fans is the stat sheet. And even those fans that talk about wins and losses, the wins are improving. You take the second half of the year, this team went 7-6 to end the year. And if he didn't get injured, I firmly believe we would have been a playoff team. So there's narratives that people can twist either way. But what you really have to do is really chunk that narrative out either side and break it down into what's really happening and see, is this guy improving and does he have the metrics? And Kevin Warren nailed it. You listened to his interview, but if other people didn't listen to it, he talked specifically about his size. He talked about how he's built for the NFL. He used the words he's built for the NFL. And to me, that was very telling about how he felt about Justin Fields. as an NFL quarterback.
And that's the thing. I mean, when you consider the beating he's taken, when you think about other quarterbacks and how often other quarterbacks get hurt, even pocket quarterbacks, guys are getting hurt in the pocket all over the league. And a lot of these guys aren't built like Justin Fields and aren't taking half the amount of hits he's taken. So it's like if you put another quarterback in this situation that Fields has been in, I have a hard time believing they'd be walking right now. It's tough with how much of a beating he's taken. So you have to really give him credit for that. His size, he is built for this. I mean, he's 6'3", 225, and he's getting bigger. He's getting stronger. He even looks like he's getting faster. Dude's only 24 years old. Caleb Williams is 2 years younger. He's a lot smaller, and we don't know how he's built until the combine. That's something that a lot of people keep overlooking. We have to at least get there and see what he's actually built at before I would even ever consider drafting a quarterback like that.
Do you think that the Bears haven't made their decision already, though? Because a lot of fans on social media, they get on here and they say, well, we've got to get to the combine before they can assess and evaluate Caleb Williams, and they've got to do this and they've got to do that. But to me, this isn't something they're just whimsically deciding at the end of the day. Yeah, there's some things that can alter that decision. They can change some things because of what happens at the combine. But as far as whether we keep in Justin Fields or not, to me, that's a decision they're already processing over years of evaluation and also evaluating Caleb Williams and other quarterbacks throughout their college seasons, seeing what they're doing and not doing. And so many fans miss the point that, yeah, Caleb Williams was a Heisman winning quarterback, but his following year wasn't a Heisman winning quarterback, and it was very different than his Heisman year. And that's not a huge knock on him because if he won the Heisman, he has the abilities to win the Heisman.
But we've got you got to think about. He had Jordan Addison that year. Jordan Addison is a special receiver in the NFL, so losing him and he falls off. There's a correlation to that too. So,
and a lot of people don't take into consideration, and so fans have short memories. And I'm not saying all fans; I'm generalizing. Dorian Singer, a lot of fans. Dorian Singer and Taj Washington were both considered high draft picks, and that happens when you have a Heisman type of year and you have such ridiculous good things go for you. They were both considered at least day 2 prospects. Some places had them considered, at least one of them considered a day 1 prospect. Now, those things change all the time. You see last year's, they're starting to put out 2025 draft prospects, and Luther Burden is a huge guy that I like, but we won't go into those today. That'll just take too much time. But that'll change significantly as we go through the next season. Well, now Taj Washington, if he didn't have a great Senior Bowl week, wouldn't even be considered a 5th or 6th rounder. And Dorian Singer's not barely even talked about. Now, is that Caleb Williams' fault, or did these two guys just have a horrible season because Jordan Addison wasn't there? Did Brendan Rice get more because of that? There's so many things to think about with that stuff, but is that on Caleb Williams or is that on the team? And people who excuse that on the college level, why aren't they doing that for the Bears at a pro level when there really is significant problems with the Bears wide receiver room?
Very true. And I mean, I was telling people that all year. A lot of people were like, they don't have any talent on offense. And I was like, we got Brendan Rice, Dorian Singer, Taj Washington, Marshawn Lloyd. Like, it's not you want to say he has nobody, like, tell me who's on the North Carolina offense besides Tez Walker if you want to have that kind of discussion, because they're like, well, the other quarterbacks have better weapons and better defenses. And I'm like, there's not much on North Carolina outside of Tez Walker and Cedric Gray. There's just not a ton on that entire roster. So you can't say that about all quarterbacks. Obviously, Michael Penix Jr., he had a ton of talent at wide receiver with Rome Odunze and Jalen Polk and McMillan. Like, they're stacked, but it's not
Same
like
with
that
Jaden
for
Daniels.
Yeah, it's not like that for every quarterback. So I thought Caleb Williams' weapons were at least good enough to have another year like he did last year, which he did not. So,
yeah, okay. The thing that drives me with Caleb Williams is what you talked about in your assessment, which, again, I think was very fair. Is he going to do the things at the pro level that he's not doing at the collegiate level? Because it's one thing to compare them in college to the NFL, and that's what good coaches is for, is to bring that out of them. But is he a day 1 starter that's going to take this Bears team from where it's at now, ascending, already on the rise, with obviously some good talent, but more good talent needed? Is he going to take them with never having taken snaps under center or being used to throwing on the run, not setting in the pocket all the time, the things that are his weaknesses, can those be easily changed? Well, he's been looked at all through high school, and obviously he has the ability, but is that more important and better than Justin Fields? I mean, that's just hard for me to see a huge difference in that position compared to other positions of need that we have.
Yep, I think you just nailed it right there with that last point. It's not just Justin Fields versus Caleb Williams, which is what everyone wants to make it out to be. It comes down to building our best roster overall. And one of the points I like to make is when you look at first round picks that we've taken on our team, on the roster right now, we have two. The two of them, it's Justin Fields and Darnell Wright. So there's 20 other positions where we don't have a homegrown first round pick, and everyone wants to take away one of the two first round picks we have and one of the most talented players on the roster, in my opinion. It's not that I don't think Justin Fields can improve or we can't get better by taking another quarterback and moving on from Justin Fields, because there are possible scenarios where that can happen. I just think when you're talking about the equity of the number one pick in the draft, we have so many holes on our roster and so many other places where we can add talent. We can get better on the offensive line. We can add more receivers. We can add another tight end, another running back, more pass rushers, another safety. We just so many places we can get better that I just don't think putting that equity into a quarterback, which no matter how good his skill set is and how flashy he looks in college, it's always a question mark how that skill set will translate into the NFL. Sell that to another team. Sell that to another team, get some picks, and make the Bears better overall. And if Justin Fields doesn't work out this year, if we added Marvin Harrison Jr. or Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas, Adonai Mitchell, one of the first 8 to 10 receivers, or even Malachi Corley or something, if you add a bunch of talent to this team and you don't take Caleb Williams and you get more draft picks next year as well, if Justin comes out and doesn't make the playoffs this year, fine. You can move on if that's what you want to do. But you're putting the Bears in a better position overall, no matter who that quarterback is next year. And anyone who thinks Caleb is the only quarterback prospect to ever come out that's special, you got a lot coming, because you're going to hear the same things about Shadur Sanders next year, Arch Manning a couple years after that. It's good. We're going to hear it every other year. There's going to be another special quarterback. So just keep your ears open for that. It's going to happen. But make the Bears better
Nico
overall.
Iasaliava.
I can't even say that name.
On that.
I did. It's on my watch. That's the other one on my watch list. Yep.
Yeah, dude. He is a true generational talent. He's touted since high school. He's the number 3 pick behind Arch Manning, who has blue. But anyways, that's 2 years from now. People say, yeah, the 2025 class might not be special. It might not. I mean, people like Quinn Ewers went back and they're only going to refine in college. Not everyone has a regression year like Caleb Williams. He might refine and be the next Jaden Daniels this next year. Nobody knows. Then all of a sudden we're talking about Arch Quinn Ewers next year like he's Jaden Daniels. You don't know.
But you could do the same thing. I mean, Joe Burrow wasn't talked about at all before that, his senior season or junior, whichever year it was, his final season at LSU, where he blew up and went off. If you put a guy like Quinn Ewers or someone else that returned, there's a lot of other quarterbacks who could propel themselves up the draft boards next year, 2026 as well, 2027. Those are going to have special quarterbacks too. So it's about making this team better overall. And then it doesn't prevent us from taking quarterbacks at other picks. I mean, there's other guys in this draft too. Even if Ryan Poles falls in love with Bo Nix and Bo Nix falls to the end of the first round, and we'd acquired a second round pick from trading down earlier, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to give up something else and move up and take Bo Nix at the end of the first round. Fine, do it. Let Bo Nix, at least let a quarterback, if you're going to take one, let him come in and set behind Justin Fields for a year at least. And then if Fields takes us to playoffs, oh, well, we got another quarterback trade chip in our back pocket. So there's a lot of routes we can go that don't revolve around taking Caleb Williams.
But what you just said nailed it. We only have 2 starters on the team that are first rounders, and we've bought some. Obviously, we brought Montez Sweat in, and
DJ Moore.
We've bought some, and DJ Moore. We've bought some, but think about how special it is with what Kevin Warren said on his interview as well. How special would it be to do that again? And I just did a mock, and we all do mocks, and they're fun. This year seems realistic that we could have multiple trade downs and we could end up with 3 first-rounders next year. I'm saying could. And I'm not going to bank on it. I'm not going to plan on it. But if we do, think about how special this is moving forward, where we're not in dire desperation of offensive and defensive linemen. And we're finally in the position where the Bears can take a running back in the first round if we want one, or the Bears can take a specialty player in the first round. We haven't been in that position because of how we've traded away all our draft capital. Now we're finally getting a surplus of draft capital. A lot of people don't even realize, because we have the 1st and 9th, we heavily have more draft value than anybody else this year. It's special.
I have a chart of that. We with only 6 picks, we have more draft value based on the chart per pick that assigns it. Each pick has their own value. We have the most value in the entire draft. And the way we get more picks easily is by trading down either one of those picks or both. If we trade down from 1 and 9, we're going to have some picks, man. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, regardless of which trade value chart thing, there's Jimmy Johnson and Rich Hill are the 2 most popular ones. There's some other new ones, but all of them, the same thing. We have like 40% more trade value or draft capital value than anybody else. It's ridiculous. And yeah, we can use that on Caleb Williams if they fall in love with him. But realistically, we can end up with at least, I'm going to say at least, another 2nd and 3rd rounder this year at minimum, by using that draft capital to trade down and still get blue chip talent.
Probably add a 1st rounder next year too. I think that's right there. Adding a 2nd this year, possibly a 3rd this year, and a 1st next year with a couple trade downs, I think is so easily accomplished. And that's an absolute minimum on it. That's without getting a mega haul. That's just moving down a few picks here and there, and Poles maneuvering through the draft board.
Well, and then you even see the hype that just came out yesterday and the day before about Jaden Daniels. We have 2 Heisman Trophy winners in this year's class. And that's a unique opportunity. But if we have Justin Fields, there could be people fighting for Caleb Williams, but then after that, people say, well, then they won't be fighting because it's Drake May and Jaden Daniels. But maybe they don't like Drake May. So another team like the Falcons might say, no, we want Jaden Daniels. That's who we wanted. The Commanders didn't take him at 1, or the Bears didn't take. I'm going to roll my eyes. Or the Bears didn't take him at 1. We want to get up to 2. They might be willing to trade up and give a haul. So this is unique. This really is. I've always been against the double trade down. Even last year, I said we're not double trading down. If we trade down, I was like you. I said it's going to be with someone like the Panthers, and it ended up happening. I was actually very close on mine. I just didn't include DJ Moore because
I didn't either. Yeah, I wasn't expecting a player.
Yeah, who could have thought of that happening? But I did project them, and I projected the Raiders. Those were my top 2, and I really thought the Panthers first. But I even said then, we're not going to double trade down. It doesn't make sense with this scenario. This year, more than any other year, makes sense. And I just did a video on it. It's kind of already got a lot of attention, but we could realistically trade down twice on that 1st pick and trade down the 9th pick, and then we could trade back up if we need to, like other teams did last year. Like, it's really unique. It's really special what we can do this year.
I think people underlook how popular that number 9 pick is. No matter what we do at number 1, if we take Caleb, if we move down to number 2, if we move down to the 5 area, no matter what happens with that pick and whatever capital we get, once we get to number 9, I put it together. I called him the terrific 10 the other day, my top 10 prospects. So most people have it at 9, though. Most people aren't putting Tali Fuaga up there. I just threw him in because I think he's special. But those 9 players, it's unique because there's 9 players that most scouts out there, most scouting outlets are going to say there's 9 offensive players at the top of the draft. So when you look at that, those the 2 offensive tackles, Joe Alt, Olu Fashanu, the 3 receivers, Rome Odunze, Marv, and Malik Neighbors, the 3 quarterbacks we just talked about, and then the 1 tight end, Brock Bowers. It's 9 players. If we get to pick 9, at least one of those guys will be on the board. If a defensive player goes early or someone goes crazy and takes J.J. McCarthy or Bo Nix or something stupid, it's another guy that could be there. But someone in the teens is going to be interested in trading up to that pick 9, and we can add a pick right there.
Here's the point why, and a lot of people aren't realizing this. Think about what you just listed off with your terrific 10. Well, right there at 9, this isn't a scrub class for defensive ends. Is it as top heavy as other classes? No, we don't have the elite blue chip star, but we've got some solid guys that should make an impact. Same
And
with
someone could
cornerback.
stand out at the combine too.
And the same thing at cornerback. That's right where your cornerbacks, whether it's Cooper DeJean or
Quinyon Mitchell,
Terrion Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry, any one of those three guys, this is the range right there where those teams that are going to want to get their guy. I mean, you've got all this offensive talent going off the board. That's why that number 9 pick is going to be valuable. Any of those teams that say, hey, we want our defensive guy, we don't have to trade up to number 2 or 3 to get him. This year, we can trade up to number 9 and get him. And there's a slew of teams that are going to start picking defense right there between 10 and 20. And that's a prime spot where people can say, hey, the Bears are up for auction. You can come up and get that number 9 pick and get our guy. We want to get Cooper DeJean. We want to go get him. They can trade up with us and go get him. And so that is going to be a very valuable pick.
You added even more context to what I was already talking about. I was focusing more on the 9 or 10 offensive players on the top of the draft board. But you added another dynamic there. Teams in those teens who are like, I can get the best defensive player in the draft. Because someone will stand out. Right now, I think Liatu Latu, Jared Verse, Dallas Turner, those are the 3 most likely. I'd put edge over corner. But one of those corners can stand out too. If one of those corners runs a 4.3 40 or something, one of these teams are gonna be like, I loved what I saw on tape, and he's a 4.3 guy. Yeah, let me go ahead and trade up a couple spots and get him. So that number 9 pick is extremely valuable, and I think that's why I even want even more to trade down from number 1. If he could trade down from 1, land ideally at 2 or 3, but I'm fine if he goes 5, 6, 7, or 8. You know, I'm fine with it because we'll get a bigger haul. But if he can do that and then trade down at 9. Ooh, the double trade down and the picks. I think you just set our team up for the future. And everyone's like, we'll never be in this position again. If we manage, like you said, to get 2 teams' first-round picks from next year, let's say it's like the Giants or the Raiders, and then a team in the teens, throw a team out there, doesn't matter. It could be the Steelers. And
Seahawks, Steelers.
Seahawks, Steelers. And you end up with 3 first-round picks next year. It doesn't matter what we do. We have a chance at one of those teams, even if a quarterback gets hurt and they just have a down year. They don't have to go into the year projected to be an awful team. And I would never wish injury on anyone. That's not what I'm saying. But bad things happen in the NFL, and teams, even if someone doesn't get hurt, teams disappoint. Teams are supposed to go to the playoffs, have down years, and it happens. And we can end up with a top 3 or potentially number 1 pick again. And just how insane would that be? Ryan Poles would literally probably get a parade around town, honest. Especially if we made the playoffs. Imagine being like the Lions this year. We make the playoffs next year, and then we go into the 2025 offseason as a playoff team with multiple first-round picks. That's
dude.
Woo,
dude. And I'm gonna call it right now. We're trading down 9 to 16 with the Seahawks. I'm calling it right now.
I would love that. Who do you think they'd take?
Seahawks have that need you were talking about. They have 2 things.
Wait, you cut out.
Well, they have 2 needs. They need a tackle bad, so they could jump up and grab a tackle. Oh, did it buffer?
Yeah, it just you cut out you like froze for a second right when you said they have 2 things they need.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Yeah, they have the Seahawks have 2 huge needs, and they could trade up for either one of those. They need a tackle bad, and their defensive line needs work. So they could come up and get Jerzon Newton, or they could get any one of the 3 defensive ends that would be available there. And if a defensive end doesn't go before 9, and they're in love with Liatu Latu or Jared Verse or Dallas Turner, any one of them, and they say that's the one guy we want, they could absolutely trade up, and they have the capital to do it, and they're in a position to do it.
And
so I'm going to call that one now.
I love it. Hey, the Seahawks, that's right where I think is perfect too. 16, I'll tell you guys this, 16 would be the most perfect spot in the world to take Jackson Powers Johnson.
Yep.
Because the 3 teams I have as most likely to grab him come in the next 4 picks with the Jags, the Bengals, and the Steelers at 20. And then even the Dolphins at 21 and the Eagles at 22, even though they have Cam Jurgens from a couple years ago, they're still replacing Jason Kelsey. That's another.
Cam Jurgens is playing. Cam Jurgens is playing awesome as a guard, but he can easily shift back because he was drafted as a center.
Yeah, I believe that. But if Jackson Powers Johnson fell to 22, they are another team that'd be very likely to snatch him. So I think he goes between pick 17 and 22. So, hey.
Yeah, historically, this is something I was just doing research on. The highest I've seen a center go was 14, and that was back in like 1970 something. And there's 4 number ones in the league right now, and the highest they've gone is 18. So when you have an elite guy, but that's the thing with Jackson Powers Johnson. I've been pounding the table with this. He is so rare. I'm doing that research right now, looking back. He has won a singular number one, and I keep saying it. It's going to get old to people that listen to my channel, but one pressure, one sack hit or hurry combined, and it was a hurry. It was the lowest variety of the
0
three.
sacks. But that's the thing
one
about him,
sack
because
hit.
when you look at him, I don't think you have to put him at just a center. I think you can almost compare him up there with Quentin Nelson with how well he played at guard.
He can play both for sure. And so even everyone's talking about right now, the leak is that the Bears are already contacting teams about free agent centers. Absolutely could be true. We have so much need on the offensive line for depth.
I'll go ahead
I
and
wouldn't
kill
be
that.
shocked one bit.
I've talked to multiple people. It's false. It would be tampering. It's false. It's not happening.
Sure.
But I do think they will bring in a free agent center, but I don't think that stops us from drafting one.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Even if we go out and sign Lloyd Cushenberry or even Connor Williams, who I am a huge fan of, because a lot of fans don't realize if we do sign him, he's probably going to take a discount on this first year. He's going to take a $6 million instead of $15 million, and then the other 3 years would be $15 million. But we get him for cheap, and then we could bring in a rookie center to bridge the gap, or that center can help play where Nate Davis is, because I don't think Nate Davis is a lockdown for the long term for the Bears at all. You talk about needs the Bears have.
I think you nailed it right there, because when you mentioned Connor Williams, he's also, I don't think he's going to play the first half, possibly
he's
more of the season. So if we draft a center like that, even when Connor Williams comes back later in the year, he could come in and take Nate Davis's spot if Nate Davis is struggling, if our center is playing well, because Connor Williams is able to play guard as well. He played guard back with the Cowboys. I've seen him do it. He's a guard center type guy who's kind of now transitioned into one of the better centers, but he can also play guard as well. So that's an interesting name. I love that one.
Well, and that's the biggest thing we need is the depth. Those guys are interchangeable. Certain guys, not every guy can make that transition, but those guys are interchangeable. But you need the depth. When you look at Jatiri Carter as our backup right now, the Bears are just deeply lacking in that position. So if we take a first rounder in Jackson Powers Johnson and we still sign a free agent, that's a big free agent. I'm saying we still go out and get a huge name. We get Lloyd Cushenberry or we get Connor Williams and we get a top one and we're paying for it. You've still got a cheap guy behind him that can also play other positions and help out, because Nate Davis is no luck. His and Tremaine Edmonds and a couple other guys, their contracts that people don't realize what Poles has been doing, they are very favorable for the Bears contracts if they don't continue to work out.
Yeah, Nate Davis, he's going to be on the roster this year, but 100%. Poles can get out of that contract after this season. He can get out of it, save a bunch of money, and he won't be here next year. So I think Nate Davis is kind of in a, hey, make it or break it year. We understand you went through a lot last year. I don't ever want to put anything on the guy, but he had a bad year. I saw a lot better player when I watched his Tennessee tape, and I think he can be better. But yeah, he's on his, what he does this year, he could be out the door next year. So I would like to add another, even if we sign a center, I still think we have to draft a guy who can play center or guard. A guy I'd throw out there, Christian Haynes is a guy, but we won't get into that yet. But just guys out there that could come in and play on the interior. I think we need to have more depth and just finally stabilize the position, especially center.
Well, when you talk about this team and the roster and where they are right now, a lot of people don't do those deep dives into where they are. Our biggest lacking need are number one at wide receiver. And people say, oh, we have DJ Moore. Well, we have one wide receiver. And I'll send you a chart on it. But the drops this team has gone through, the separation is ridiculously low. If you take DJ Moore and Cole Kmet, yes, we're elite. We'd be in the top of the league. But if you take those two out, we're scrubs. So we need depth at wide receiver. I expect us to take at least 2 to 3 between free agency and the draft. And the same with the offensive line. I expect 3 additions at minimum on offensive line between free agency and the draft. And I really think all 3 of those will be through the draft with where we are currently with our roster. In free agency, I just don't see the same thing being added. Possibly a center, and I see that happening. But I do expect a guard and a center drafted at least.
I would hope that he drafts the wide receivers. I do think there's a couple talented wide receivers that could slip out there. You're talking Michael Pittman or T. Higgins, but I think the odds are probably against them hitting there or Poles paying them the money they want.
I'm not
go
talking
ahead.
big money guys in wide receivers, because a lot of people don't realize the 50 million we have, even if you add the Eddie Jackson and the
Cody
Whitehair money to it, that's, you know, roughly between 20 and 24 million, depending on when we cut them, pre-June 1st, post-June 1st. That money, that $70 million, it doesn't go very far. And I did a video on that. It really doesn't go far when you have to re-sign the guys we need, when you have to fill other positions. You can't go out and get a top tier wide receiver and try to build this team the way we need to and still have the cap flexibility for future years to come.
I say the same thing about edge when people say we're going to sign Brian Burns or Danielle Hunter. And I'm like, after paying Montez Sweat, we're going to pay Jalen Johnson. I don't see us putting that much money into an edge. So are there some wide receivers that you like this year in free agency that are kind of value
quickly,
guys?
though,
maybe Tyler
because
Boyd.
what you just said,
Yeah.
I'm gonna nail both those, but because what you just said, so many people overlooked DeMarcus Walker. And it's the same thing that I was pounding the table with. This is where I went last year with Yannick Ngakoue. DeMarcus Walker is a great secondary defensive end, and I'm gonna send this to you.
Mm-hmm.
After Tez came here, the Tez effect was no more prevalent with anybody but DeMarcus Walker. DeMarcus Walker, his stats improved tremendously. He is a starting defensive end with Tez.
I think we add another situational pass rusher, and I think it probably comes via the draft.
I agree. And then next year's draft is the big draft for defensive ends. So you talk about what we could add next year with the first rounder. That could be a defensive end as DeMarcus Walker's contract is coming to a nearer end. And he was a bridge guy, a very valuable bridge guy. But I don't see us needing to pick that defensive end like I did in the beginning of this offseason, or as the end of the year came around. I kind of thought we'd take 9 as a defensive end. But I think as I've looked more and more into DeMarcus Walker, he really does fill that role well, where we don't have a dire need. Do we need to improve from him? Yeah, long term, but dire need right now, no. But to go to what you said about wide receiver, yeah, I love the connection with DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel. And Curtis Samuel is going to be much more affordable than your T. Higgins. And some of those guys, I don't think you're even going to hit free agency. I think they're going to get tagged. Yeah. Especially Michael Pittman. I don't think he's going to – there's no reason.
I think same with T. Higgins. I don't think there's any way. That's why I just kind of try to bypass him, Curtis Samuel's interesting. Him and DJ have that special connection. They're good friends. So
Did you see the videos when they first weren't teammates? This is a couple years ago. But they would hug each other in the tunnel before every game. Did you see the video where
when they were in Carolina? I saw it. Yeah.
Well, and then when they went to different teams, when Curtis Samuel left, they gave an imaginary hug in the tunnel.
They did the imaginary hug. Yeah, that was they both did it. Yeah, it was good. But I do want to touch on that DeMarcus Walker point though. That was great there because I've kind of not the same way that you just said it, but you kind of might have just put me on it. I've been kind of leaning away from defensive end at 9. While early on in the process, I thought, look, we need a wide receiver. That's why I wanted Marvin Harrison was my dream choice with the first pick or by trading down. And then with 9, I was always thinking Jared Verse. Jared Verse has been my guy. I love Liatu Latu. I think he's a guy who can't set the edge, which is what Eberflus wants. He's a better pass rusher than Jared Verse. But to me, Verse is the better fit. So I've kind of connected him to the Bears at 9. But the more I get into this and dig deeper, I'm like, man, I don't really want a defensive end at 9. And I think you make the point there a lot. DeMarcus Walker is good enough to do the job there. And I think we could probably add someone in the 2nd to 5th round to come in and be a situational pass rusher. You hope DeMarcus Robinson develops as well. And then you can maybe sign another value guy like we did with Rasheem Green or somebody this year, hopefully that has more of an impact than Rasheem Green does. But you're right. I don't think that's as big of a need. Wide receiver's huge. Center's huge. I think guard is really moving up that list. We need 2 guys at least on the interior that are starter worthy, and then another guy who can probably come in and play in a pinch. So those are great points by you that I wanted to just kind of touch on there.
Yeah, I'm done with Dominique Robinson though. You mentioned him.
Yeah. I don't know if Poles is though. I don't know if Poles is done with him.
I think he is. Here's the difference, and a lot of fans don't realize this because they don't see where the transitions come from. If you look at the roster from 2021 to 2022 to 2023, it's significant, the improvement each of those years with the quality of talent. we had those 7th and 6th rounders on Poll's first year of drafting out of necessity. A lot of fans look at mock drafts and they think 5th, 6th, 7th rounders, those are starters. We're going to plug those guys in. That's not real. They might make the 53-man roster, but reality is your 1st and 2nd rounders should be the guys you expect to impact your team.
You want to build depth in those middle rounds.
Yes.
The good GMs hit in those middle round, 3rd, 4th, and sometimes 5th. But 6th and 7th, usually special teamers or depth guys.
But in those first drafts from Polls, it was necessity that those guys had to be coming in. We had to. I mean, Dominic Robinson was out of necessity, not because he was one of the top guys that we stole at the end of the draft. He was a necessity piece that we had to have. Same with Ja'Tyre Carter. I mean, same thing with, the players that we get in those late rounds. We've had to play them. Now we're getting to a position where we don't have to. We can take higher quality prospects.
You're dead on with it. And while you're saying this, look, you guys are going to be seeing this a day late. But while I'm recording with Adam, we actually have some breaking Bears news.
Uh-oh.
So we're going to talk about this for a minute. The Bears, according to Adam Schefter, are releasing Pro Bowl guard Cody Whitehair. After Whitehair spent the past 8 seasons in Chicago, the Bears want to give him a chance to sign with another team before free agency begins in March. I think we all saw this coming. I think this is something that's really it's been written on the wall for a while, but this is going to be a big cap savings for the Bears. And Cody, I wish you the best, but your best days are far behind you.
Hey, props to Cody. I'm going to pull up right now exactly how much that saves us. You might have it.
If we designate him as pre-June 1st, this will save the Bears $9.15 million, 4.1 dead cap hit. But there's a new rule last year. The NFL allows teams to designate 2 players that they cut before June 1st as post-June 1st designations. That's right. If they do that, which is most likely, that's going to save the Bears $10.25 million and only a $3 million dead cap hit. This is over $10 million in savings, baby. Hey,
well, and
right when we were talking about it.
Yeah. Just so people know it, that the $4 million is owed to him either way, but it just defers $1 million of that to next year, to 2025. So we can have some of that eaten later. Either way, it's a move we knew was coming, and good for Cody. Hopefully he goes somewhere and still, has a chance to back up. He's getting older, but he served a purpose with us. But that shows exactly what we're talking about. We need a much stronger center and middle of our interior offense for sure.
I think
look at Swifty with the breaking news.
Hey, I got it DM from me. I got to give a shout out to my guy Chicago John. This guy, he DMs me stuff when it happens on Twitter because I don't check my notifications enough. I'm not sitting here checking my notifications, but if the DM pops up, I'll glance out of the corner of my eye and I saw breaking Bears news. Wait a minute. Like, we're always down for that. So great to have it happen while I'm in the middle of recording a show with you here. We're talking about how we need more guys on the interior of the line. And Adam Schefter said, hey, let's go ahead and get this out here for my guys. But I could kind of see that now that I think we definitely have to sign a center in free agency, no matter what. Even if we're drafting a center, we still need to sign one in free agency. To me, preferably a guy who could play center and guard. What Cody Whitehair was supposed to do, or Cody Whitehair or Lucas Patrick, but actually capable of doing it.
Well, and with that, I'm going to say one of these top tier guys. I don't want a mid-level guy. Andre James would be fine, but it wouldn't blow my socks off and make me excited. Lloyd Cushenberry, Connor Williams, that would get me pumped. Those are 2 guys. And the reason I say that, this is the analytical stuff I do. Their sack hit hurries, they only allow that about once every 30 plays, every 30 passing plays. That's the top of the draft. That's the top of the league. For example, Braxton Jones, I'm doing a lot of research on him right now. He's allowing a sack hit or hurry once every 13 plays. So there's the knock on him. And there's the reason I think we could add some tackle depth. He's the same as DeMarcus Walker. He's doing a good job. To me, if your guy goes below 10 on sack hit hurry, it's pressure. Let's just say pressure. I use sack hit hurry because it's an analytic that I use. Your top guy in the league, Penei Sewell, 31 plays, 31.8. So once every 31.8, which is elite. Nobody's even close to him. DeJuan Jones, the best rookie last year, once every 20 plays, and he played really well for the Browns. Okay, and that's why Darnell Wright got a lower grade than we thought he should have, because he played well. It's the thing. It's not all about stats. You look at it on tape, and he's taking on double teams, and he's playing with injury against the Raiders and using one hand and not even using his other hand. But Darnell Wright was once every 12.65 plays that he would have
Solid.
a sack, hit, or hurry. Solid as a rookie, especially. You want to see that come up into the 20 range, but your good offensive blockers are once every 20-ish plays. Your elite ones, nobody's up with Penei Sewell. That's just ridiculous. And he's also a great run blocking. I mean, he's just, if we had Penei Sewell, I mean, pay that man $50 million on the line.
He's a monster.
Because it's ridiculous what he does for them. Jared, you never see Jared Goff in the same situation that Justin Fields is. And that's the difference with what a line makes. That's the point I'm pounding home here is we've got to focus on that interior of the offensive line.
100%, man. The line it's something that I've talked about. I feel like I talk about it too much, but I've only mentioned a few times that Justin Fields only had the same starting 5 offensive linemen, never for 3 games in a row. It's tough to have any kind of success like that when you have no continuity on the line. So I think the offensive line, even though I am happy with the way it's being built and I'm higher on Braxton Jones than most, I still think we need talent inside that interior. I think at least 2 starters and a reliable backup guy that can come in a pinch, because we all know Tevin Jenkins, as much as I love him, he hasn't proven he can stay healthy yet. I think he can. I think injuries can be fluky in the NFL, but you have to have at least an insurance plan this season.
Yeah, and the same with swing tackle. Our swing, Larry Borum, same thing we were talking about before. Out of necessity, he had to play. But we can talk about this later, but there's so many swing tackles I love taking in this draft. There's some guys that I really, really like in this draft. Not as plug-and-play starters, but swing tackles that could even develop to starters later down the road because they're so talented. This is a really good draft for that depth. And that's the thing with the Bears. You talk about he didn't have consistent players. Well, our backups aren't the same as some teams' backups. We've got a manageable starting cast, manageable, and I say that because they were still one of the lowest rated lines. But when you get into our backups were not special. Our backups were killing us. So
yeah, I mean that's a biggest problem. We had one of those guys backup was kind of a starter, was Cody Whitehair, Lucas Patrick. 1 or 2 of those guys were supposed to be starting for us all year and ended up playing a lot and were just bad. Nate Davis was underwhelming. Tevin Jenkins was the lone bright spot on the interior of the line. Yeah. So that's why we have one guy that's a bright spot in there right now, one guy that's a big question mark in Nate Davis, who we've seen play well before, but yeah, we just got to add bodies in there. And we'll get into that swing tackle in what's coming up later. You guys won't see it here, but let's see. Anything else we want to touch on with the Bears?
No, that free agency is going to be the big turner for me. We talk about what's exciting coming up. The combine's obviously exciting because it gets you hyped up for the guys we could draft. We don't know what we're going to draft yet. We project and we anticipate and we do hypotheticals, but free agency to me is just as exciting as the draft, because when that free agency hits and we're able to sign 2 or 3 guys that really take a clear picture,
it allows you to really zero in on what Poles is going to draft. That's how last year I was all over Jalen Carter. I really love Jalen Carter. But about 3 weeks before the draft, I was zeroed in on Darnell Wright. And I think sometimes a lot of it was luck. I'm not saying like, oh, I knew what was going to happen, but a lot of being able to know what Ryan Poles is thinking. If you follow the team as closely as we do, obviously the national media can't guess because they're all over the place. But if you follow the team as closely as we do and watch what Poles does in free agency, we got rumors starting at the combine. Eventually we'll find out what happens with Fields' 5th-year option and rumors about the number 1 pick. And then we go into free agency, kind of zero in on those needs. And then, like you said, that is when those last 4 or 5 weeks there, guys like me and you will be zeroed in on who's Ryan Poles taking? What we know what positions we're really digging into at that point, and it's going to be a fun time. I'm excited.
Well, and that clears everything up too, because a lot of people right now are saying, "Well, let's go get Chris Jones, or let's go get Christian Watkins, or let's." But then when we talked about that before, that $50 million that's now going to be $59 million, and then if we cut Eddie Jackson, it's going to be $70 million. That doesn't go very far. So if we do sign a Lloyd Cushenberry, let's just say we sign him, and we sign Curtis Samuel, and we sign Xavier McKinney. We haven't really talked about safety too much, but
I love
I
Xavier
really
McKinney, though.
zeroed in.
My
I think,
favorite safety.
yeah,
Well,
Xavier
unless
McKinney to me
Anton
is
Winfield hits. Yeah.
well, he's not going to. He's going to get
Yeah,
tagged.
exactly.
And that's the thing with this free agency class at safety. No, I can't say that. I'm saying that with my opinion. There's no insider information. Nobody knows if they're going to tag him or not.
I
But
just
it's a
don't think
clear.
it's the same. I say, like, when you have a player that good, Antoine
How do
Winfield,
you let him go?
you don't, not at this age,
Yeah.
a guy who's a Pro Bowl. It's like you just don't do that yet with a guy
Well,
this talented. You have to keep him around. People are like, well, you could franchise Mike Evans. Mike Evans is 30. His best football
yeah.
is almost behind him. Antoine Winfield's a 24-year-old, two-time Pro Bowler, I think. I'm not checking that off the top of my head, but I know he's been there. He's an all-pro, Pro Bowl guy, and one of the best safeties in the NFL, in my opinion. So
The best,
he's
in my
not hitting
opinion.
free
And
agents.
that's elaborate to say. And I know people do, but when you combine his ball hawk, how he has coverage, and he's got the peanut punch, I mean, he's the trifecta for safety. So I don't think he'll hit free agency. But Xavier McKinney to me is the clear choice for the value you can get for him and for how he's had a resurgent year this last year. I think he's perfect to bring in, and that will clear up a lot of what we're going to do in the second and third rounds, because when you know you've zeroed in on, say, those three things, a slot wide receiver in my example, a center, and a safety, then it's really clear. Those 6 picks, maybe we turn them into 7 or 8 in future picks. It's really clear what we're going to need at the end of the day once you've seen free agency hit. So I am just excited for March 11th through 13th as I am through for the draft at the end of April. Both of them are exciting to me with where we're at.
Yep. I always like the draft a little bit more, but free agency's right there. Free agency's almost like Christmas, especially if your team goes out and signs someone you want. Like if Anton Winfield hit free agency, I'd want them to pull the Julius Peppers treatment, like show up at his door at midnight the day of free agency, but that's not going to happen. But I love Xavier McKinney, who you mentioned. He's a guy who can fill that Eddie Jackson role. He's a reliable tackler. He can play center field. Him and Julian Blackmon are the guys who I think are best fits to come in and replace Eddie Jackson as far as free agents. But you nailed it pretty much there. Free agency is like, that's when all the rumors come out too. And once we sign these guys, it's like, right now we got these lists. These are what the Bears need. We said it: wide receiver, center, la. Go on with it. The other needs. But once we get to free agency, we check some of those off. And then it's like, oh, okay. I'm excited, man. I'm excited.
And that's where the narrative's going to change. When people start seeing the moves that Poles is making, when they start seeing it, it's going to happen soon. It may happen before the combine. It may not. It depends on how willing to deal the Commanders are. But I'm saying it. Yeah, I'm banking my entire reputation. Whatever, you guys. It's really my take. We're trading that number 1 pick, and it's going to happen with the Commanders. It could happen super soon. Like it really could. That's where you're going to see the narrative start to change. You'll start to see people see that picture coming into focus, and what we've been talking about with, because Ryan Poles' behavior is not unpredictable. People act like he's like every other GM. He and Kevin Warren are straight shooters. They just stay out of the spotlight. Yep. And when these things start to happen and you start to see us take another wide receiver and trade that number 1 pick, that's when people are going to say, okay, let's start looking now into Justin Fields and what he hasn't had. Then the national media will change. They'll change their narrative after we've already been spitting this for months. And they're going to say, oh, it's clear and obvious. The Bears are taking Marvin Harrison Jr. Oh, it's clear. And we knew this all. It'll be a narrative shift. And they're going to act like it was natural and normal because they start to see what Ryan Poles does. But for us, you're right. You nailed it. We're focused on this 24/7 and we see what's happening. Does it mean we're right all the time? No. But it's a lot more predictable than if you're not understanding the inner workings of Ryan Poles and the metrics of what he does to build this team brick by brick. And that's why we keep saying that, brick by brick.
And that's what it is, man. And that's what Ryan Poles has been doing, and why I'm so excited about the direction of this franchise right now. It's mostly Ryan Poles. And I don't talk about Ian Cunningham enough. I want to give him some credit too. I do believe they're kind of like a dynamic duo, but I kind of like to leave him under the radar. I don't want to talk about him too much. It's like, I know he'll get a GM job because I know NFL people, they're not listening to me. They don't care, but he's going to get that GM job. But I'm not trying to give him extra hype. Like, nah, you stay here, help us build this, especially. And I think it's special because most people agree this is one of, if not the most important off seasons in Bears history. And having both of those guys here for that, after what they were able to accomplish last year, because at the end of the day, for us, guys like me and you, we can't distinguish and separate how much of it Ryan Poles does and how much Ian Cunningham is responsible. So the longer we can keep him here, so we have both and don't have to find out who's actually better and or who does what, I'm excited about it. It's a special time to be a Bears fan.
But with this much draft capital, as we talked about before, you can only listen to what people inside Hallis Hall say. And the consensus I get, maybe you have it a little bit different, is Ryan Poles is the executive who makes very intelligent decisions and trusts people around him. But Ian Cunningham, to me, is the scout. He's the guy that really knows how to dig into the talent and find those guys that they're looking for to fill that draft capital. And if that's the case, and maybe I'm wrong on that, but if that's the case, what more important time to have him than right now?
I kind of picture them both as the scouting guys. I think
no, they both obviously he does, or he wouldn't be the GM. I'm not trying to say he doesn't do anything.
I think what happened is when they were, because I read a lot into their relationship before, is when they were both scouts and they kind of met and they ended up traveling together all the time and just being roommates and riding together in the car when they were driving from game to game, because they had different viewpoints but similar philosophies a lot of times, and it allowed them to just bounce stuff off of each other. Like, imagine if we were both scouts, you know, and we're going to scout a guy and we're just in a car and you're driving 8 hours. And so you're talking about prospects and getting to know each other better. So I kind of see it as they're like kind of like just two prodigies that are both able to kind of, hey, if one of them has an idea that's kind of stupid or kind of out there, the other one's going to put him in check and be like, you know, that's a good point. But, and then like you did with DeMarcus Walker, you bring in another interesting point. So I think together they're just like this dynamic duo that I'm so glad we have him in Chicago, to be honest. I'm lighting up over here. I'm getting excited. Yeah. They are, man. I believe it.
And everyone says, well, we need those 2 third-round picks. They're not as valuable as Ian Cunningham. There's a reason we get compensated for losing him, because
we'll get him at some point anyway. So
yeah, he's going to be a GM at some point, whether it's, you know, next year or hopefully not even then, because hopefully we get more draft capital and he sticks around for even more, and then we get some championships and the dream. But
the dream, baby. The dream. Well, Adam, and I absolutely love you. We still got to talk about draft prospects a little bit for another show, so we're gonna wrap this one up. I just appreciate you coming on here, man. You're obviously one of the coolest dudes out there, most analytical, thoroughly think things through, and just a great Bears fan. And I like to call these people that are watching the best Bears fans out there, and you're one of them, man. And that's what we all are. We're Bears fans that want the Bears to win, and we don't like the stupid narratives that the national media throws out there and regurgitates back and forth because they can't think of their own thoughts. So we like to give you a little something that's a little bit deeper. And man, I'm so happy I got to talk to you, Adam. Send out your final words. Tell people what you think or anything you want to say.
This is a blast for sure. Props to you, Swifty. You are the reason that I like to do this type of stuff, and just sitting here chatting football with you. It's a blast. So hopefully some Bears fans are able to enjoy this and get a different perspective than what the national media is pumping out there, because it's constant and you do have to push it out a little bit. Hopefully we'll give you a little different perspective and some things to chew on. But either way, all Bears fans want the exact same thing. We want to be hoisting the Lombardi, and we want to be celebrating and you know, having our time in the sun and being able to enjoy it. It's coming. I really do think we've got a new wave in Chicago. This isn't the new or the same old Bears. This is the new regime under Ryan Poles. And so it's fun. Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm sure we'll do it again sometime because this has been a blast.
Hey, bear down, everybody. I was so glad to have you on, Adam.
Bear down. Yeah, I love bear down. It's become my thing because the purposeful direction we're headed is the Bears. So bear down, my friend.
Bear down.
But when that comes into play, I just lost my train of thought, dude.
It happens. I'm the same way.
This is what happens when I spit it, like I was just telling you about. I get rolling too much, and then I have to stop it and start over again.
Like, wait, what was I talking about? I did that earlier. I was rolling about something with you right before we started recording. I was like, what was I even talking about? What point was I making? Like, it happens. No, what were we talking about? Now I don't even know what we were talking about.
Yeah,